Hi everyone. Hiya. Hello. How's everybody feeling? It's like sort of the afternoon, so you kind of feel like you have kind of the energy. The slump of the morning has kind of like energized you, and you might be feeling a little bit hungry. So, you know, strap in. We're going to have a really good chat today. So we're talking about sustaining healthy productivity. My name is Lauren Kaye. If you don't know me, I run the She Plays Games podcast. I'm also a program coordinator for Limit Break Mentorship. And today I am joined by this lovely person. Do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, hi, I'm Kirsty Rigdon. I'm the co-CEO of Future Lab. We're a development studio based in Brighton, and I also co-founded Into Games, which is a non-profit trying to get people into games.
Yeah, it's actually so funny because when I met her today, I was just like, actually, I worked at Into Games, which is just so funny. But yeah, no, lovely, really, really lovely to have you on and chat with you today because you have such a wealth of knowledge and experience in the industry. So, you know, starting back as a games tester in 2004, which is just, you know, amazing.
Makes me feel old. Thank you.
No, not at all, not at all. Seasoned. You worked at THQ Wireless, and I just wanted to sort of know, to set the stage, like, what was the climate like at that point in time for you as a tester, as a woman in the games industry?
So THQ Wireless was quite a small place when I was there. I think there were about 12 people in the office, so it was quite close-knit. QA at that time probably wasn't as respected as it should be, so we were basically in a cupboard, but it was all right. I mean, it was my first job. I was quite happy doing what I wanted to be doing.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was all right.
Yeah, it's really amazing to see where like QA is going nowadays, especially because it's definitely
so important.
Yeah, and it's so important to protect QA as well.
Yeah,
they're the golden children.
I feel very lucky that I started in QA because I feel like it gives me a real understanding of how important it is, and to make sure all our QA guys are, you know, properly looked after and respected, and there's no segregation.
No, that's lovely. And then you did go on to game designing as well. Is that how you sort of got your sort of passion of going into game design?
So I always knew I wanted to be a game designer, and I knew QA was a good first step to get into it. So I was a contractor at THQ Wireless, and then I was able to get a full-time role at a company called iPlay up in Edinburgh, which is also where I wanted to move back to because it's where I'd been at uni. And so I was a tester there for about 9 months or something, but because I wanted to be a designer, I made that known. And so they were great in giving me kind of QA tasks that were related to design, and I used to hand the head of design concepts that I came up with, and he was lovely. He'd basically mark them and give them back to me, and we've had a discussion about it, and then when a role came up, I got it.
Oh, that's fantastic. I love stories like that where like you've been in a environment where they've looked to train you up, they've looked to give you the tools to get you where you want to be, as opposed to just like keeping you in your lane, essentially. That's really, really lovely.
It's how you get the most out of people, and again, that's something I've learned how important it is. So we try and do the same at Future Lab. If I know someone wants to do something and they've got like, there's a couple of weeks where they don't really need to be in the role that they are, I'll move them over so they can have a taster, see what it's like. Yeah,
that's fantastic. And then with that, you know, you've moved around a bit. You've had your experiences at a few different studios, including EA. And you said that you've actually experienced a lot of different engines. So I kind of wondered how you felt about, or what advice you have for sort of approaching this new job. You just got this sparkly new job, and it's just like they're using an engine that I'm not necessarily used to. Like, how did you sort of approach that? How did you adapt?
So I think when I was at university, each module, so I did computer science and artificial intelligence, so each module involved learning something different, using a different set of tools or a different engine. So I was quite used to it. Also, I'm quite good at not putting pressure on myself and being like, look, first 2 days, just expect to freak out about this, that you don't know what you're going to do. Chances are by the end of the week, you'll be fine. And that's always what happened. And I think the more you go through that cycle, you're just like, it's all right, have a couple of days, just earmark them for sitting under the table crying, and then you'll be grand.
It's like, where's Kirsty? Yeah, it's fine. This is all part of the plan.
Yeah.
It's all part of it's all part of the plan. But that's amazing though. But I think that is so important, especially for newcomers, is like setting yourself that grace time.
And I think I can say now as an employer, like, it's expected. You don't expect anyone starting to be up and running and, you know, it's fine. Everyone gets grace period to settle in, so.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely lovely. And then, you know, talking about crunch, because crunch is one of those words that I think we all kind of come to know and love in the games industry. And I in love in inverted commas. You know, when did you first encounter crunch, or did you encounter crunch early on? And then, like, sort of, how have you coped with crunch as you've gone through?
So I'm quite good at saying no. So I worked for one studio that kind of encouraged it, but I had a 2-hour commute, so I was going home.
Yeah.
And yeah, I ended up leaving there after about 9 months because it wasn't for me. And then I moved to Relentless Software, and they were very anti-crunch. And again, I've learned a lot from them in how to create a culture. I think you used to have to like tap in and out, and you would get like a red mark if you were like a minute late past 9, or if you worked past 6 o'clock. So I think they took it a little bit too far. But
heart in the right place. Though.
Yeah, it was heart totally in the, and that was an amazing place to work, and I learned a lot. And then I worked for EA as a contractor, and they took me on. And I knew they took me on because they were up against it. They had a date that the game had to be out. It was a Harry Potter game, so it had to come out with a film. And I said to them in the interview, look, these are the hours I will work. I will work every other Saturday for you because I know that you're, you know, it's tight, but that's it. If you want me, it's on these terms. And, you know, they took me on and they stuck to it. They never asked me to go above and beyond what I specified I would do. So yes, there's the studios shouldn't be advocating crunch, but I think like employees too, like stand up for yourself, just don't do it. Like if it's a problem, you don't want to work there. So, and there's millions of games companies out there now, and especially being able to work remotely, you've basically got your choice of where you want to go. So just say no, kids.
Yeah, yeah. I think that is so important, and I know like being a passion industry, you sort of have your ear marked on like the specific studios that you want to go to, and you sort of think like, oh, if only they were nicer, if only they respected my boundaries. But I think that is so good of like having that value for yourself and knowing like this is what I need in order for you to get the best value out of me.
I just break things after 6 o'clock. There's no point.
Yeah, yeah. It just all sets on fire.
Yeah.
You know, like it's yeah. But I think that's really important and really, really amazing. And then, you know, with that in mind as well, like crunch is something that is like constantly we're holding studios accountable for their crunch culture and how they treat their employees when they don't like sort of, you know, stay over a certain time or that type of thing. Like, you know, do you feel as though you're seeing a real change, and how have you sort of seen that change as the industry has gone on?
So when I joined FutureLab, I was very clear in the fact that we would be doing 9 to 5 with an hour for lunch, and that's it. You know, obviously, if you're working on something and it's going to take you to 5:15, like that's fine. Like just finish what you're doing around the 5 o'clock mark. If you finish something at like 10 to 5, there's no point starting something new. Just go. It all ebbs and flows, evens out. It was easier when we were all in the office because I was there. I had the keys. I'd be like, "This is your 15-minute warning. We're all leaving. I'm locking up. You can't get in." It's much harder now. We're remote. We've grown a lot. We were 22 people before lockdown, and now we're like approaching 70.
Damn.
And the majority of those people are remote, and so it's you know, I can't chuck them out of the office basically, and so it's harder to get that across and to explain the importance of having a life outside of work, especially when, you know, working from home but you actually living at work. Yeah, so we try, it's ongoing. All, you know, I can say over and over and over again to everyone is like, if you have too much work to do, that is our fault, and you have to stand up and tell us so we can do something about it. Either get more resource in, take something off you. This isn't a bad thing, like this is a good thing. I'm going to respect you 100 times more if you stand up and say you need help, rather than trying to do it all yourself. And all I can say is that is not the way you will succeed. I'm not going to be checking people's like Jira logins and things. All I can say is, if you don't ask for help, that is not succeeding at Future Lab. And I just say this over and over again.
Yeah, I think that that's wonderful because, yeah, like I think so often, especially in remote working, we'll just take it on, right? Like we'll just take it on, and we feel like it's almost like shameful to express that need for help. But I think that that's so wonderful that you're a leader who actually says like, no, like if you need help, talk to me, and you know, we'll sort of work on it.
A lot of it comes from recruitment as well. So I now have a mental checklist of things that I look out for. And if someone can't talk to me for a few minutes about something outside of video games, then that's a bit of a red flag for me. It's like you have to have something else going in your life, be it like your family, your hobby, something that you can talk about and something that you're going to be looking forward to spending time on outside of video games. Because if you have that void, you're just going to naturally, well, might not, but there's a tendency to fill it with work.
Yeah.
And work shouldn't be like your sole focus for life. I mean, you should enjoy it and you need to do it to get paid, to pay the rent, but you need something else in your life. And also, I think having something else in your life makes the type of games we're creating much more interesting and diverse. Otherwise, you're just going to get cookie cutter version of the same game, which I think happened for a long time. I mean, it's much better now, and I do think that's because there's a different type of person making games with different interests. So it's important to keep those new interests and different ways of thinking, you know, thriving within the company.
And it is like the thing, like there's always going to be an audience for something. Like I just finished What Remains of Edith Finch. Oh my God, I cried my freaking heart out. Anyways, but it was just so, it is so refreshing to see games that are just like, they express something that you haven't seen before, and it can stem from that growth that you have in another area. I'm still waiting for my like pole fitness friggin' workout game. I want that. Anybody who's making that, come talk to me. But yeah, I think like that is really lovely and really incredible. And then, you know, do you have any advice as well for keeping your staff with a healthy balance of productivity and well-being during a project?
So we have a staff welfare manager who I can see in the audience. So she checks in on everyone and organises like, you know, online events and real life events and stuff to keep people happy and motivated. You know, again, I say it's difficult when the majority of people are remote, because back in the day you could be like, oh, you know, look like you're a bit upset, do you want to, you know, go for a coffee or something?
Yeah.
So it's harder, and again, I think we need to, there's so much we can do as a company in order to sort of check in and stuff, but you also really need to get employees and you know, candidates and stuff buying into the idea that they have to look after themselves as well. So it's like a two-way.
Yeah, two-way street.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I think that that's really lovely. I'm loving seeing like studios that are doing internal events and stuff for their staff, because it's just, yeah, just having that little bit of like fun and excitement, and the staff love it as well. The employees just adore it.
We do a couple of game jams.
Oh, lovely.
Yeah, every year. So people have the choice of like coming down and doing it out the studio or doing it remotely, or, you know, being in a team where it's a combination of them. And then, so we've got 2 big projects at the moment. So we, you know, we're not perfect, but we're trying to get a regular sort of meet up with the projects happening every couple of months, every 3 months or so, so that people just check in and have some, you know, workshops around what they're doing. But it's really an opportunity just to talk and connect and see people as people rather than like a name and a Slack list.
Yeah, no, definitely. And then what are some insights and tips that you can share with all of us about actions your studio, well, I think you've kind of addressed it as well, like the sort of avoidance of crunch, like you've said about how you're really trying to sort of make that a rule, that nobody stays past that time mark, right? Like, yeah,
I mean, so a bit controversially, this goes against the idea of flexi time. So we've been asked by quite a few employees, like they would like to do flexi time, and I'm quite like, no, because I've worked places before that do, and all that I felt happened is you ended up working longer hours so that you would be available when the person who did longer hours was available, because you really needed them to talk something, and then it just all sort of spirals. So it sounds really unflexible, but I do think like 9 to 5 is, you know, boundaries are kindness, right? Everyone's together, everyone's working. I mean, of course, if, you know, there are like extenuating circumstances, like we let people change their hours for like a few months or something because they've had to, I don't know, like a family member in hospital and whatever, that's fine. But it's just the norm is, you know.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Like there's nothing worse than like being like, I have to do this meeting and it's at a time that's like just out of your, or like an hour out of your allotted work time, and you're just kind of like, okay, well then how do I not work in the morning? Do I, like, it takes out that question mark of trying to rejig your
does someone else need me in the morning? Or how am I going to become a blocker?
Do I take an extra lunch? Like, what do I do? But yeah, no, that is interesting. And then considering sort of like the current job climate, I mean, we're seeing people getting laid off front, back, and center. Do you have any advice for a newcomer coming in to this to a new studio that perhaps isn't taking the steps it needs to protect its staff and avoid crunch? Like for somebody who's coming in and they've got their first job, and it's just like, oh no, like they've gone through the interview process, they've been sold on the idea that this company is safe for them to work with, but they realize it's probably not. Yeah, what advice do you have for somebody to protect themselves?
I think you've just got to stand up for yourself. See how, I mean, it's really difficult if it's your first job. It reminds me of one of the places I worked that I did leave. I was like, what is the appropriate amount of time that I can stay here without it negatively affecting my CV?
Yeah.
And then see if you can do that. Talk to your line manager, try and find someone at the studio that emphasises with you, if they can help. I think, like, do exercise, eat vegetables, have a life, have something else that you can look forward to outside of work. Don't make work everything, even if they're trying to make you. Yeah, it's tough. If you're older, I think it's much easier to stand up for yourself and to say, look, you know, I can go and work anywhere. It's really tough when you're just starting out, because you just want to get some experience. And if you've been given the opportunity to get some experience, I would say really research the companies before you take a job, so you don't get yourself in that situation. But it is difficult because a lot of studios out there are like, oh, we don't do crunch, then you find out they actually do.
Yeah.
Or maybe they don't do crunch, but you happen to be in a little feature team or something where your lead is, and therefore you feel like you need to. Yeah, it's tough.
Yeah, it really is. You could join a mentorship program like Limit Break.
Or can work for Future Lab. We have a number of vacancies open.
You know, get that in there. It's not every day you get to be a BAFTA. But yeah, so I think now we're going to pretty much open the floor for any questions that anybody might have. So if you want to think for a second, I do have one more question I can ask while you're generating your questions. But it's, what is your favorite self-care activity?
So I have a toddler now, so I really need some self-care. So, like, this sounds so privileged. I book myself into a spa once a quarter.
That's lovely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's because holidays are not holidays anymore.
No.
So I said to myself when I went back to work, I'm doing that once a quarter. I don't care. Like, I'm just going to sit and read a book by a nice pool.
Yeah.
I do that. Exercise is another one. I don't like doing it, but it does make me feel better, and it's good for you.
It is the thing you just get so angry about. It's just like, frickin' hell. Like, I have to run a kilometer.
You see, also, I live by the sea, so sea swimming in the summer, that actually is a massive thing. Getting up at 6 o'clock and going for a swim in the sea, shut your eyes, turn away from all the poor industrial stuff, and, you know, think, oh, I could be in Barbados for like 15 minutes.
I must admit, going to develop in Brighton, I was so happy. I was so happy.
Do you know, actually, I jest, but I live and I work a block from the sea, and that actually makes a massive difference. Yeah. Like, if I ever get stuck on a problem, I just go and walk and sit in the seafront and look out at the sea. Yeah. And the solution usually comes to me.
Yeah. Yeah. No.
But that's not possible for everyone.
No.
But I think I used to do it in the bath. Can't really do that at work. Actually, where we did work, we did have a bath in our previous office. A bit random.
I could just imagine it though, you sitting in the bath and put on Spotify and put on ocean sounds and just be like, I'm at the ocean. I am imagining I am on Brighton Beach and I can smell the Mr. Whippy and all that stuff. Yeah, it's great. Do we have any questions? Oh, we have one in front.
Hello, thank you for this. This is really insightful. My question is, when you were growing and scaling Future Lab, I guess, over the recent years, and especially from lockdown, what were the challenges you faced in making sure you did have that sustainable and healthy, and productive environment? And I guess, have you found that you had kind of competing demands from, say, publishers or perhaps in your experience from other roles where the studio's been trying to do something one way, and there's been other sort of financial demands to do things another? How are those two things interacting together?
So do you mean like having to hit deadlines to get payments and then being like, come on guys? So what we always did is cut features, cut scope. If it looked like we weren't going to be able to hit a deadline, we would look at what we were doing and be like, do we really need to do that? And so that's the way we were always approached, not having to crunch over deadlines. We've been lucky that we have always worked on our own IP, more or less. So we worked on a Peaky Blinders game, obviously not our IP, but the creative, mechanic behind the game was ours. So it was easier for us to cut things without having to really get, say from anyone. In terms of sustaining our culture while growing, it's just really getting the different layers to buy into it. So it was easier when we were smaller because it was like James and I run Future Lab, look to us, this is how we're going to be, this is how you be too. It's easy. Now we've got, layers of like leads and management and stuff. It's just getting them to really buy into it and to communicate that downwards. And then I have a call, well, it's either Chris, our COO, or I have a call with every new joiner to go through like our cultures and values deck, and this is how you succeed at Future Lab, this is how you don't succeed at Future Lab. Succeed, ask for help, don't succeed, don't ask for help, basically. Does that answer your question?
It does.
Fab. Okay, got another one?
Hi, thank you. I was just wondering if you've ever found anything that you've implemented for employee wellbeing to actually help with mental health hamper productivity?
Not really that I can think of. I think ultimately if people's mental health isn't great, that's what's going to hamper productivity. So, I mean, it's a fairly significant small amount of time to get people to buy into these things or to have events away, and actually the longer term gains far outweigh any small term pain. So no, not really.
Thank you.
I gave my Udi to a member of staff at Jinx TV, and I think I just single-handedly ruined their studio because he's so comfy. just putting that out there. Any more? Oh, I recognize you. Hello.
You mentioned, this is loud, sorry. You have a lot of remote staff. Do you have any tips on how to protect people that you don't see every day? How do you engage them? How do you ensure that they are being productive whilst healthy and protecting their mental health?
Yeah, it's really tough because other than, you know, having a call to make sure they're okay. So everyone has a one-to-one with their line managers once a month. I and our COO, I've got a list of everyone, so I just constantly going through organising just, you know, 20-minute, like what I call water cooler talks with people, like no agenda, just, you know, tell me what your cat's been up to or something. I don't think we do it perfectly, to be honest. We're always learning. We've been expanding very quickly. And like I say, Hayley, our staff welfare officer, she checks in with people. We have a thing called Spill, where people get, I'm going to get this wrong, 6 free health, 4 free counselling sessions every year, which we really encourage people to use. It's just about keeping in touch. Obviously, people work with their teams a lot more, they talk to their teams a lot more. We have a daily stand-up for each project where they check in, or just lots of talking, really. I mean, that's the best we can do, really, at this point. But we're always looking for other things.
Thank you.
I was wondering if you have any examples of tailoring this mental health care to, for example, neurodiverse employees or people who have more specific needs in this area.
I can't, to be honest, I can't really think of an example where where it's been like, this is a mental health issue, this is what we've done. I think we just work with everyone and what they need, because regardless of whether they have any, you know, mental health is a spectrum, right? Everyone's somewhere on it. So just taking time to check in. I mean, we do make sure when people join, we find out, you know, is there anything that you need support with? And, you know, we will support in that way. I mean, I guess it's not mental health, but, you know, I can think of someone who's had a physical ailment, and we've worked with them to, you know, change their hours. We've also got like a long-term company sick thing, so that if people have to be off for an extended amount of time, we've got insurance in place that will cover their wages. So yeah, just again, it's like, what do you need? And like, we'll do it.
Yeah, you'll adapt.
Yeah.
Because it's like, there's not one size fits all for anything.
No. Unless you want to work outside of 9 to 5.
Yeah. In which case, no.
No, we, like, if it was a short-term thing, we would, you know, adapt someone's hours, but it couldn't, you know, it's not forever.
Yeah, no, definitely. Oh, another one.
Can I follow up with that illness thing? Because as someone who has a chronic illness, that means that sometimes I do need to take months off every year or so. I found it really hostile working in the games industry. And is that something you've experienced in your team? And has the insurance pulled through? Has it been something you've been able to work with? And if so, how? Because it's really hard for me and I'm the one in charge. So I can't imagine how it would be for someone else.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so I'm going to look at Hayley again. They did pay out, didn't they? Yeah, they continued to pay out. Yeah, so it worked.
What's your insurance provider? What's your insurance provider's name? Just asking.
Oh,
Hello.
yep.
Hi, thank you. This has been great. I'm starting a new job next week, and so my question is more about that terrifying realm of I guess going on from what you were saying about saying no, how do I know whether I'm being given too much work or whether I'm just really slow?
Oh, bless you.
Well, so I think when you start, you're going to be slow, right? And it's going to be weird for them to expect anything else. I would hope that you would have regular check-ins with your lead who would be able to explain. I don't know how big the company is, so the bigger companies tend to have better structure, but smaller companies you can be more informal about it. You just ask, like, am I doing what you expect me to do? They'll want to help you, like, because they'll want you to be able to get to where you want to be, because it will make you happier and therefore more productive. But then being more productive obviously helps the company in the long term. So I would just ask, am I doing what you want me to do? What can I do better? Chances are you'll be fine.
Thank you.
Yeah, I do think that that's the thing, though, isn't it? Like with sometimes like managers are really like it's the protection, isn't it? That protection, like how much to protect a newcomer coming in so as to not to scare them and that type of thing. But yeah, that's really good, though, to keep asking for that sort of.
I think also it's important to remember that it's not difficult, but it's easy as a manager to sometimes forget to tell people that they're doing well, because you just look at the problems and you want to address them. So I would say if you don't hear anything, you're probably doing great. People, and that's not the way it should be, right? You should be told that you're doing a great job. But I would just take some comfort in, if you don't really hear from them, it's probably because you're fine. You tend to look at what's on fire.
You got it.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure. Thank you.
Hi. So a number of the different focuses towards employees and individuals taking responsibility when it comes to crunch, and absolutely, for sure, boundaries, doing right by your own station, that's so necessary. What about advice to companies who are so dependent on crunch and being able to get that kind of perspective towards maybe we don't need to keep doing this? Any advice to organisations and leaders?
It's difficult, I think, once you get yourself into a cycle. I'm not going to sit here and pretend as an owner I've never worked ridiculous hours. I had a C-section, and just before I went in, I was reading a contract. I mean, you know, so massive hypocrite here. The way we did it is how much before is cut and scope. Like, what do we actually really need to do here, and trying to detach yourself emotionally from what the product is and being like, would anyone notice if we didn't do this? Am I going to be the only one that actually really cares about this and it's not going to make a difference? So trying to really look at what you're creating and what is really needed. And then like contingency, just adding on, because you're going to use it, right? Like we always try and put 30% on, and it's hard because you're like, oh, well, that doesn't really work. Let's bring it down to 20. It's really hard, like, because you need a project, because you need money to come in, and therefore you're going to just sort of do what you need to do. But I would say, cutting features, cutting scope is the way we've done it. And also telling people, like, don't phone me at 7 o'clock, because
you're not going to get an answer. Yeah, but no, that's really good. That's really good. Thank you.
Hi. About something you mentioned earlier, like you guys providing counseling sessions and options like that. I'm curious if you can speak to how often or how many people really take advantage of those options, and how much is openly transparent to encourage people, regardless if they're showing obvious signs of needing it, right? That those options are available to them, so that the onus is very clear that it's not just on the individual, that there's a real shared dynamic and relationship about what people need.
So unfortunately, to be honest, not that many people do use it. I'd like to think that's because everyone's just fantastically happy. I'm sure they're not. Hayley is really good at recognising when people, she talks to people a lot and she's very warm and open, and you know, it's easy for me to say this, but I really do think that people will tell her if there's something wrong, and I know that this has happened on many occasions, and it's her role to, as you know, studio welfare manager, to, you know, explain the options. And we do go on about Spill a lot and the fact that it's there to use. We also have Vitality Healthcare, which gives you a lot of extra sort of rewards related around health and exercise and things. Yeah, it's a combination of, again, listening to people. We can tell, like, when there's something up with someone, because it will be a throwaway comment from someone else that they, you know, seemed a bit upset, and then Hayley will reach out. It's not a one size sort of fits all answer there, I'm afraid.
Yeah, no, I know, like, my first thing when I'm like feeling really anxious is I hide it. I hide it behind a smile. I'll be first to admit that. Like, I do it. It's very hard for people to tell when I'm breaking. So
yeah. It's so hard. I'm sure, like, again, we're not perfect. I'm sure there's people who work for us that are under great stress.
Yeah.
All we can do is keep saying, you know, we're here to help. And actually, we have a really nice team. Everyone's very supportive of each other. So,
yeah,
you know, I do think that the message gets out there.
Yeah, they know it's there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hi. So my question is actually regarding sort of like the terms of like toxic productivity. So when I was during the pandemic, I felt like the hardest thing was that obviously when you were locked inside, it was kind of difficult to break up the cycle of toxic productivity, because there wasn't really much else going on because you weren't going outside. But I think the hardest thing for me was, well, I would say that like my cycle of productivity has improved, but would you say that you have any tips to recommend kind of breaking out from that cycle at this stage?
So I'm a fan of the commute, if you like. Not like an hour-long being on a train type of thing, but going for a walk in the morning before you start work, like getting yourself, you know, into thinking about what am I going to do today and kind of letting everything fall into place. And equally at the end of the day, going for a walk. I think you need that like physical separation. You can't just be like, well, there's my laptop, I'll have a browse on something else. Have I finished work? Have I not? I think you need a clear separation. Yeah, and have like plan things to do in the evening. I mean, that doesn't necessarily mean like you have to go to a concert every night or something, but you know, like tonight I'm going to try a new recipe that I've created, or tonight I'm going to phone my best friend, or you know, have appointments that you have to sort of stick to, even, you know, if they're just small things that you're doing for yourself.
Honestly, that saved like our life with my husband, because like we were just kind of wondering, like, why is he so, like, during lockdown it was just like, why is it so stressful for him to get into work? And it was exactly that. He had to we learned that he had to manifest his own commute to work at home, and it does, and you do have to work at it, but like, yeah, that made all the difference for us, definitely.
Well, I was going to say, on top of that as well, go out for lunch. Go and sit in a park, get away from the desk.
Yeah.
Just different spaces.
Definitely. Thank you so much for that.
Hi. I'm a limit break mentee for this year.
Yay!
Hey. And I had a question about colleagues with disabilities. So I'm hard of hearing, deaf. Colleagues with disabilities will often have to work much harder than the other colleagues to produce similar levels of output because of various accessibility needs. Are there any recommendations you would have for studios or companies more broadly to better support those colleagues, or for those colleagues who are struggling to better self-advocate, perhaps?
Again, like if you worked for me, all I would be able to say to you is what do you need? How can I help? Because I'm not going to know unless you tell me, and I appreciate that's probably quite daunting. So we just need to make sure that we have a environment where you feel safe and that you can talk about it. We do, every new employee that starts, we ask them, do you need like a new chair? We'll buy you a new chair. What equipment do you need? How can we make your workplace as comfortable as it can be? And so by extent, we would, try and provide the same level of care.
Thank you for that.
Hello. Yeah, I just wanted to ask actually, did you have a moment in your career where you realized you wanted to implement a fixed time from 9 to 5 instead of a flexi time?
There was not one defining moment, but I went from a flexi time studio to a fixed time studio, and the fixed time studio, everyone was really happy. I was really happy. I had a life outside of work, and that was when it clicked for me. Like at the flexi time studio, it just felt like everything was always a blocker. I was always waiting for someone that was not there, and then when I was available, when they were available, I wouldn't be there, and it just felt very unproductive.
Thank you.
I think we're good. So yes, no, thank you so much, Kirsty, for your time with us today. It's been really amazing, and I think like we've all learned loads. So yeah, thank you so much for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you.